Hi everyone, welcome to the Key Talk. Here we'll be talking a little bit about the developments that we can do through private sector directly to customer for drinking water and sanitation. My guest is Pia Rask. She is Senior Director of Safe Water at Grundfos. Thank you, Pia.
Thank you, Inês.
It's really nice to have you. As I said before the podcast, it is the first time that I have a chance to talk to you, and I'm so happy about it. So I somehow ended up, the first time that we crossed paths, when was it?
I think it was on Teams, right after Grundfos brought up
Was it there?
your water.
I think it was before. I think it was Focus still. I think we were at the Next Generation. Yeah, you were my guest at the Next Generation Water Action.
Really?
Yeah. You didn't know? No, it was me. And we talked there. Okay, I will try to remind you. So, back in 2018, maybe, I don't know, 19, no, 20, sorry.
Okay.
COVID-19, 19. We had the Next Generation Water Action program, and we invited, Grundfos was partnering. We actually have many students of the Generation Water Action this year here joining. Yes, so all the winners joined.
Wonderful.
Yes, and you were a guest speaker together with a representative from Humble. We also had someone from the Danish industry to talk about the role of education and partnerships for SDG 6.
Okay.
And I remember that I made you a question that you didn't agree with me. It's okay. But it was like, I was saying, don't you think that SDG 6 is like the most important? It was not like this, right? But this was the setting.
Yes.
And then you were like, no. And I'm like, okay. But in a very good way, and I feel like every group of SDGs, they kind of say, no, mine is my important.
Yeah,
exactly. No,
exactly.
actually it's justice. No, actually. And there was also this question about, because of course you're with Grundfos, so at some point you said, yeah, I can send pumps, and then what? And then what, right? So it was a lot about capacity building, I believe, and I think that's the direction, right?
Yeah.
Because without the capacity building, there's no way. Yesterday I had an interview here with the Dr. Tamir, and he was talking a lot about capacity building. He actually said that there's a program where, for example, me, I know about drinking water treatment. I could offer a couple of hours for them to use in their e-learnings across the globe.
Yes. Good idea.
Yeah, and I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, you can give the hours that you can. I'm like, okay, I commit to 10, 20. And he said, per year. And I'm like, 10. But I can try, I can give it a try. But capacity building is something that is really important, and it goes hand in hand with the business that we're trying to create locally,
Absolutely.
right? So can you tell us a little bit about Safe Water so everyone understands, and then how capacity building integrates?
Sure. So Safe Water is a business unit in Grundfos where we are solely focused on trying to serve underserved communities in commercially viable models. So our target is people reached, but we want to do that in sustainable ways. That means also commercially sustainable ways, because that means we can take the profits and reinvest them back into trying to find, new ways to reach people. So basically, we try to, let's say, explore the edges of what's commercially viable and tip that into our core, because when it's at a core of our business, that's when we scale, that's where we are really good as Grundfos.
And then you integrate capacity building after or before? Like, do you understand what they still need to learn, or how does it work?
We partner, so we will always partner, because I think one of the questions that you may have asked with before as well is how do we get to SDG 6?
Right.
And we can't do that alone. We need to partner. So we see capacity building as, let's say, the foundation of everything we do.
Very well.
So one of the things we decided very quickly as Safe Water was to, let's say, build a catalog of training and really see capacity building and training that fits especially the Global South and our type of partners much better than, let's say, just, you know, generic training or installer training for someone in the US or in Europe. How do we make this something that really just fits our type of partners?
Yes.
So one of the things we've done lately is partner with technical schools, for instance in Ghana, for instance in Ethiopia, because our purpose is not really, you know, to make people buy Grundfos.
Right.
I don't think that is going to move the sector. We would like people to make informed choices because competition is a good thing. It keeps us on our toes and makes sure innovation is always at the front of what we do and that it's really needs-based. So our capacity building with the technical schools is actually more broad about just lifting capabilities, getting great curriculum, making sure, you know, it's a certified education that we have together with local authorities. So it's not specific to us, it's more just lifting capabilities and know-how locally in general.
And then do you have direct contact with people that you can then say, okay, we have this, how do you deal after?
So we will typically help build the program and then do, let's say, train the trainer, and then on top of that, our partners like World Vision or Water Mission or, you know, some of the other partners we will also do bespoke training. So we'll say what are actually the needs for this particular organization in that particular area, and we collaborate around that and we try to create something that makes sense. We also run a series of webinars, so we had you know, more than 2,000 people through our webinars last year that are, you know, targeted for our type of partners.
And I mentioned, so before we had the program, that it was the bus, and it's like just a conversation with younger professionals, completely random about like, where were you in the program? What are you doing? What did you see today?
Yeah.
And I said that you were coming after. And then I actually started wondering, so you come up with that idea. I don't know how well the idea is spread in the private sector, but you come up with this idea, okay, I'm going to try to create a business out of this. How do you present it within a private company? How do you say, I'll knock at the door and say, hi, I'm maybe crazy, but I think that it's possible for us to create a business out of this. How do you do that?
Well, it's a long journey, but what we very specifically did was actually together with a colleague, we sat down, and of course this builds as well on years of experience. So I come from rural electrification and spent most of my life doing energy efficiency, rural electrification and climate projects in Asia and Africa. So together with, you know, a broad range of stakeholders, I threw some ideas around. So it's not something, you know, we sat in Denmark and said, this is how we're going to do it for Africa or something like that. We actually sat together. And what we developed was like a crisp 3-page paper that said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to organize it. And this is what we believe we can achieve. And we presented that to group management.
Yes.
And then it was another period of time, I forget how much, but then after that we agreed to say, okay, let's go. And that's basically how we did it.
How long has it been?
So now we have had Safe Water for 3 years. So basically what we did was put together initiatives that Grundfos were already doing that were perhaps a bit scattered. We had LifeLink before, which was very focused on AQ-Tab as a product and sort of putting the product to market. I think one of the big changes we made with Safe Water was to say,
it's an approach, I mean, right? It's a
we need to reach people.
Yeah.
So whatever that takes, whatever we have, know-how, experience, products, everything, that's what we bring. Not a particular product or a particular approach, more like what is it that's needed? What is it we have that can help that development?
Which is kind of the support. I mean, the product you can leverage on the support that you created later on, right? Because you have a foundation somehow. If you after go for a product, because that's what makes sense and people understand and people, so it's completely different approach.
Yes.
Yeah. But so how if that's okay for me to ask, how, like, were you afraid when you made that proposal, or were you just okay? If they said no, how connected were you with that proposal?
Very connected, of course. I think we had a session, was it yesterday as well, where I also said, well, this with intrapreneurship, and I actually have a paper on that I'm presenting tomorrow, because I did try to write about this, but it's not the easiest thing to write about, because it's, you know, a lot of things happening at once.
Is it morning or afternoon?
I think it's in the afternoon.
I will try to watch it.
Yes.
Yes.
because I think it's very much about also the long term, that you actually present the vision you have. I think that's very important, because this is not something that's gonna, happen in the next 6 months or 12 months, but that you show the vision you have for what you're trying to do. Yes. I think that's very important, and I think one of the things we did as well was not only work forward. When you make strategy, you sort of say, here's where we are today, that's where we need to go. We started using scenario analysis and started with the future and said, well, if the future looks like this, or like this, or like this, yes, then what is it we need to do today to make sure that we navigate in those? So we worked both ways, yes, to try and actually say, well, this is why we think this is what needs to happen.
Yeah. So many thoughts came to mind. I need to see that tomorrow. That's the first thought. I need to figure it out. What is the room? Do you have the name of the session?
Yes, it's SDG 6 and approaches, social entrepreneurial approaches in big companies. Perfect. So I will find it for you.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. Thank you so much, Fia. But we actually, in young work professionals, we had this challenge of, well, I will ask the other question first. So the first question is, do you think that such proposal will work in all companies? Because I feel like depending on the size and the mission and the compromise to the mission.
Absolutely.
So it won't work all the time, right? So you need to know where.
Absolutely. I think, well, referring back to yesterday as well, I think you have to know the business you're in. You really have to understand the core of, if you are in a big or medium-sized company, you really have to understand what is our core business, and how is it I leverage that to the benefit of adjacent markets, because that's what this really is about. It's about taking what we're really, really good at and reaching new markets, new people with those solutions, and I think that really takes you deep into the commercial aspects of the business you're a part of as well, because you need to understand the value propositions you have today. You have to understand what's differentiating you in the market, because that's what can bring value to the next layer as well. So I'm a big believer that if you are working in a corporate environment and you want to do something like we're trying to do, then this deep understanding of your starting point almost is so important for you to get the big organization with you, which is where you can really make a difference, right?
Yes, yeah, I agree. It can be challenging because sometimes it has to be the right timing, the right place.
Absolutely.
You have to be very aware of those things.
You do.
And not stop just because it was maybe not the right time.
But I think also our ownership structure is very important, because we do have in Grundfos a target to reach 300 million people with our partners with drinking water. And there's a commitment behind that as a visionary, ambitious target where we say that needs to force us to think big, think scale, think a little bit outside of what we normally do. And we are foundation owned, which I think makes a big difference as well. Yes. So that means you have a owner that's not looking quarter to quarter, but that actually has that long view all the time and has been through an institutional memory almost of, okay, since 1945, we've been through things.
Yes.
We'll get through this as well, and what's important is actually our vision and what we'd like to be.
Well, back in 2018, in the young work professionals in Denmark, we had a problem because it was the first time that somehow the young work professionals in Denmark started in 2014. But then we became kind of friends in 2018. That you talk with people and you ask how they are, and you become aware of the struggles, and one of the struggles that we were having was career development.
Yes.
And so we were like, we are out of the university, some with a PhD, some with some more practical understanding of the sector. What can we do? Which direction? And so we did a session, and we invited a person from a water utility, like a leader from water utility, one from consultancy, one from private sector as well, and then academic also. Mm-hmm. And then we asked them, what do you need? For the workforce of tomorrow, what do you need?
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was like superhumans.
Oh.
It was superhuman. So suddenly we needed to be very technical.
Okay.
But not too academic. And then we needed to be very good at communicating,
Yeah.
but also know about machine learning. Not that one goes, but you
Yeah.
needed to have all of these skills. And then you needed to be aware of a global market, but also be very commercial on your local market. And then it's like, it's frustrating because you're confused. You're confused.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yes.
And so we did the other way around, which was what you were actually saying that you did as well. So we went and looked, what are the main mega trends for the world?
Exactly.
2050.
Yeah.
And let's grab those. Let's look at the impact that they can have and the chance that they can occur, the possibility, and select the top ones. And from those, let's understand what will a leader need as skills.
Yeah.
And we did this workshop in 2019. And we did it with young water professionals from across the globe in Toronto, Canada. It was the last time that we saw each other. And the main takeaway or the main skill was a soft skill. And that was to listen. And we were not expecting that.
Yeah.
We were not expecting that. And I don't know if it came out of us feeling not heard, but I think there was a lot of understanding that there will be many things that we won't be able to grasp, many specific things, and that we'll need to trust and need to make the decision informed decision, based on what people are telling you. So you'll have to listen a lot and understand what they are trying to tell you, and regardless of your technical experience, right? Because the world will just become so much broad. And so everyone just wrote down what was the skill that they would work on.
Okay.
And then, and that was the target and the motto after the Congress. We'll have another workshop. I already talked with some of the team from Ghana, actually. I said, you need to pass by. It's done in collaboration with South Africa, this workshop.
Yes.
And now it's going to be another reflection on the workforce of tomorrow, considering the mega trends.
Great.
Yes.
Well, can I make a commercial break? Another one then. I'm gonna now take my phone because then I'll tell you when it is tomorrow. But we have a session on megatrends as well.
Oh.
So let me just find it. So tomorrow, private sector approaches to SDG 6.
At what time?
So it's in the 3:30 till 5:30 session.
I can do that.
And on Thursday, we have a How Megatrends Drive Decisions Today.
Okay, when is that one?
At 1:30 p.m.
1:30.
At the exhibition hall C.
Okay.
At the end in the business forum, so it's open.
Yeah. So
for everyone.
So what I'll do is that I'll tell my team that is doing the workshop that is tomorrow morning on the workforce of tomorrow to advertise for the megatrends, because then everyone can go.
Yes, we'll have a futurist from Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies there as well as part of the panel. We'll have C40 and the Safe Water Cities 2040 on Thursday. Yes, it'll be wonderful.
Morten, maybe we'll have to stay here longer. Because I'll have to.
It'll be an awesome session. Yes. Because I think one of the things we want to look at is, of course, what are the megatrends actually today, like generally speaking, but then we want to trickle it all the way down. So we have the head of water aid in Bangladesh as well in the panel. Because to me, one of the big dilemmas is, of course, if you then take the megatrends and trickle it down to water in a specific location, then you're trying to give people water access today, but you're depleting a resource for tomorrow. That's the impossible dilemma, right? So I think that is interesting as well, because we tend to talk about megatrends as something, you can't change it.
Yes.
But you actually have people today who have to sit and make those trade-offs, right? And I think we forget that sometimes. And we also forget that maybe we can't stop a megatrend, but we can influence the future.
No. And now, to be honest, I was reading the Global Risks report.
Yeah.
And now I started to be a bit worried about one of the factors, and it was youth disengagement.
Yeah.
And that one was tough for me to read.
What did it say?
So basically, it's starting to show up in a lot of countries, especially countries where there's corruption in the system. So youth just stops believing the system. And that's one of the main barriers for entrepreneurs. because if they don't trust that they can create their businesses,
Yeah.
and that's the way I'm seeing it, right? And I also feel like it comes to a point where we have told youth so many times that climate change is real and action is needed, but we're very bad at saying how.
Yeah.
And then when we go and study, then we came out of the studies and we think we can do something, but we are not enabled because we are not ready, we're too young. And so we are put into businesses that are already very well structured.
Yeah.
You know, most of the businesses, you know, there's of course exceptions, but we're put into the system, and then it's very hard. You have to follow kind of this hierarchy.
Yes.
And when you go even to this, there's many countries, and some stories I cannot put names, but where, for example, you have the older generation that, despite of have reached the retirement age, they keep the position because the position is the power that they have in the community. And so the younger generation doesn't have the time to reach those positions and to really bring what they learned and what they know. I also feel like within youth, the conversation about climate is just so much easier. It's like there are things that we don't even talk about.
Because you're in agreement, like intuitively, or
intuitively.
you're born in agreement almost. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
there's no, and I feel like that will be very important, especially when we think about transboundary conflict rising for water.
Yes, that's true.
It will be really important to be aware of that. And I believe that if that communication and the handling and the management of conflict and negotiation is done by youth, it could work better. It would have this, you know, sensibility somehow.
Well, you would anyway, I suppose, with what you're saying, have a joint understanding of the world, which often helps.
Yes. Because most of the families have people abroad also. We at our age, we know so many people from abroad. We're just so much more aware of the globe, let's say. I, at some point, so before I came to Denmark, so 8 years ago, I made a decision. It was very rushed. You know, I was almost unemployed in Portugal. I studied civil engineering. And then I came to Denmark to study 1 year. I went back to Portugal and I couldn't find a job. And then I started to, I called my commune, so the municipality, and I said, I know math and physics. Do you have students that need help? And so I went and I started to teach math and physics.
Right.
So, like volunteer work.
Yeah.
And this was back 2011, so this was when, you know, crisis was really on the rise, economic crisis in Southern Europe, and parents were working 2 jobs, things like this. And suddenly I ended up after 1 year with a group of like 60 to 70 students.
Wow.
Yes.
You built your own business.
Yes. And the parents, so I was teaching in the library, the local library, and the parents of the kids knew that I was unemployed. So they started to give me money. It was like 10 euros a month. But it paid the gas, so I was happy. And then I started to develop a relationship with the kids that was very interesting. And well, then I had to decide, okay, will I create a business out of this? Because then I ended up having 30% of the students to be from private schools. Mm-hmm. And so I could charge more, like 50 euros an hour, something like this. So I created, and I'm like, okay, I can create a business out of this. I'm happy with this. But then I thought, but I know how to build houses.
Yeah.
It's not that it's minor. I would be happy there. I will find my happiness. But there's so many other tools that I'm not using. And so I wrote to an old teacher, and he gave me a job opportunity for 3 months in drinking water. And that's how I entered drinking water, because I was a civil engineer. And I was afraid. I made the decision, okay, then I'll go. It was a very hard day. I had to say goodbye to all of the kids, and it was tough. But then after 1 year of being in Denmark, I realized that I didn't talk with my siblings about me leaving. I just decided to go. And for my parents, I know it was tough, but it was, you know, she will grow. But for a sibling, it can be different. Suddenly you don't have your sister around. Mm. So then I traveled, and I realized that. And then I had a conversation with my sister. I said, I'm really sorry that I didn't talk to you about it. I didn't thought about it. We were sharing bedrooms and I didn't thought about it. And she said, yeah, Inês, but most of my friends have their siblings abroad. And that's when I realized that the world is it's smaller. And I feel like there's an understanding there that your problems are my problems. And if you're having difficulties, then I'm having difficulties. And that's where I think through youth everything just becomes clear. So I'm looking forward to the partnerships that we can do in both private and public sector with youth.
Well, I hope you're right, and for sure, I think I'm repeating myself when I say, for me, it's not just youth, it's hopefully also bringing in a whole range of other types of diversity as the next generations come about, because I think in the water industry, it's quite open that not a lot of women are in our industry, for instance, and but that's just one kind of diversity. I'm hoping that with the next generations, I see it with my own children, that the diversity in all shapes and sizes is just different.
But I think it will
and it's wonderful.
I think it will come because for us it's very clear.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that I am involved in all the volunteer groups that I have. Most of them are women. Because you see them taking, like, no, I don't settle for that.
Yes.
It's a kind of revolution.
That's
right?
good.
When you're like, no, I'm not okay with that.
Well, we need another one for women in Denmark in particular, because we're just like, running down all the lists of who's doing well on gender equality, and I think we're going to miss out generally also in Denmark if we don't up our game. So I'm sure it will help everyone with the next generation.
Oh, it will. It will for sure. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Pia, is there any other thoughts that you think it's important for us to share with the YWP, so the young water professionals or those that are not even part of the association?
I think one of the questions you actually sent me was, what's the one advice I would give? And I was thinking about that a bit, and I thought, well, all young water professionals at some point are no longer young water professionals.
That's me almost. It's like a cliff. I don't know what will happen. Suddenly I'm senior.
It's wonderful because you bring experience and I think you will stay listening and learning, and I think that's what I was discussing with my colleagues. I was asking a few colleagues, what would your advice be? And actually I think what we all settled on was, well, you have to keep learning, and you have to every year. Someone even said like every 6 months you have to set yourself a new challenge. What I've done for many years is say I have to learn something new every year, and it's not necessarily a professional thing. This year I started walking, so I walked 60 kilometers in a marsh before the summer, and I walked 48 after the summer, because I'm like, I don't understand the sports. It's meaningless to me. Who would want to walk that far?
Yes, for me it's running. I don't know how people.
And so you. But you enter this community and you start realizing, oh, that's why. And then you learn something new, like, oh, you got to take your shoes off every time there's a break. And I think it's important to, I guess, make yourself vulnerable as well. Make yourself the beginner. Because it gives you also, it reminds you that everyone has a start and everyone starts somewhere, and it reminds you have to keep learning, and there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, so no, I do the same, so it's really funny. So, for example, for this year, for me it was, the first 6 months was to finish my 5th model Danish education, so I did that. And then the other, for this 6 months, is a course on leading with finance that I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's and I like it because it was 6 months on language, and now it's 6 months on math, and so it's just, and it can be computing next time, and it just keeps on growing. And I leverage, my work leverages from that all the time.
But I have to just also say soft skills.
Soft skills, yes.
So learning, my go-to is also often, I should take a course on that. But it doesn't give you, I think, placing yourself, one year I decided I have to try the climbing.
Yes.
So imagine yourself, hanging there with your huge, and you have no idea what you're doing, and you look like the biggest idiot on earth. But I think it's important to also sometimes just place yourself in that situation, in that vulnerable situation where you suck at this. But you gotta put yourself out there, because I'll be honest and say, just adding new courses to your curriculum, that doesn't build your soft skills, and that doesn't build you as a human being necessarily.
It's true. I started one last month, and that was starting basketball.
Yes.
I was too shy to say. So I started to play basketball. I never tried it before. But I found a really nice group of girls.
Yes,
In
wonderful.
Denmark. Yes, some of them just returned from maternity leave, so they are also very relaxed about it.
Yeah.
Some of them have been playing for 20 years. And every time I do something wrong, they're just don't say sorry. You're wasting energy.
Yes,
Go for it.
so true.
And I'm like, okay, that's new to me.
Yes.
Good. And then I'll go for it.
And now when you then become a senior water professional, you have to remember that when you catch yourself one day and saying, that doesn't work, we've tried that. You need to just remind yourself if that was last year or 5 years ago.
That's a good point.
You will say it. You will catch yourself saying it one day.
I have to remember that.
Yes.
That's a very good advice, Sophia. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We'll end our conversation. It's past 3, so we'll end it. Thank you so much for
Wonderful.
being here. Great to meet you.
Thank you for
every time.
having me.
You're most welcome. Anytime. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.